recording on here? All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Legislative Rules and Governmental Operations Committee. The date is October 30th. It's 9:30 a.m. Let's take a look at the October 2nd, 2025 minutes. I'm assuming you looked them over. Want to put a motion forward to approve those minutes as submitted. Motion made by Supervisor Wild, second by Supervisor Thomas. Any comments, thoughts, amending? Hearing none. I'll put it to a vote. Those who approve the minutes as submitted, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right, minutes are approved. Privilege of the floor and public comment before the committee meeting starts. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak to the committee before the committee begins? Seeing none at this time. Let's go to the county clerk and DMV agenda. County clerk, Carrie Black and Deputy Linda Morgan. Okay, so the action item, new business items. One, a request, unfund and retain the currently vacant as of November 2nd, 2025, principal legal recording clerk, salary of $67,589, and repurpose the funding to the already existing position, legal recording clerk, salary $45,751. Rationale, the transfer of the previous incumbent to deputy real property director has left a vacancy for which no existing staff members are currently qualified for immediate promotion. Maintaining full staffing is critical to preventing operational backlogs and ensuring the county clerk's statutory duties are executed efficiently. This action ensures we can hire an immediate replacement to keep the office fully operational and creates an annual net budget savings of $21,838 in salary costs. In the future, when a clerk is qualified, we would request funding for the principal title, at which point the redundant legal recording clerk position will be defunded. I'll hand it over to County Clerk Black.
As you guys will remember, we just funded a senior legal recording clerk, thank God, and defunded a legal recording clerk. So that legal recording clerk position is there. It is just not funded. It went to fund the senior legal recording clerk. That senior legal recording clerk is going to be the principal supervisor of that department. But in order for us to keep above water, we need another staff member doing duties in the office.
Questions from committee? Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. Carrie, it states in the future, a couple of months, a couple of years.
I would say
somewhere in between.
a year to 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Carrie, does this mean that you're eventually going to add an additional staff member over that 1 to 2 year period?
No.
Because-
No, so what would happen is if somebody becomes qualified, they would move up to principal, a legal recording clerk would become senior, and then defund that legal recording clerk.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Yes, Supervisor Garachi.
Motion.
Motion made for approval by Supervisor Garachi, seconded by Supervisor Driscoll. Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, might be a question for Frank. How best to handle the 20,000? If does the position become part of the organizational structure, but it's unfunded because the funding's been removed, right? Then the question becomes, okay, now you have an unfunded position within the budget. Does the 21,000 fall to the fund balance? In which case, if you wanted to fill that position a year or a year and a half down the road, you would have to come forward for that additional funding within the budget. Is that how you think this would proceed?
Yeah, more than likely.
Okay. I think it's good the way you've laid this out, because I think that in the future you could demonstrate that this was the strategy going forward, and that we knew that at some point that down the road that we might have to come back and move those funds up into your operating condition fund, fully fund this position.
Yes.
Any other thoughts from committee members? Let's put it to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right, motion passes. Referrals, pending items, local real estate transfer tax, continued conversation with requested information.
The last time we were here, we had a brief discussion on local real estate transfer tax, which I told you had the potential to hit about $3 million a year in revenue. Again, I want to remind you that revenue is strictly for the general fund, so that is revenue that the county can use as they see fit. It does not hit, budget for me. I think Supervisor Conover had asked me how many counties were partaking in it. I did a quick survey, and from what I gathered, 15 out of 62 counties are imposing this tax. All of the New York City counties do impose this tax. It's called part of the NYC RPT. Essex County does impose it, $1 per 500. Madison County was probably one of the newest ones that imposed it, and that's $2 per 1,000. There's some others too, which I'm happy to hand out the list if anybody would like it. But I just wanted to bring that information back to the table. I don't know, Larry, did you send them the legal opinion on the local real estate? Okay. So everybody should have gotten that. And if anybody had any questions other than that, I'd be happy to answer them.
I think Supervisor Wild.
Are there any local counties that are considering this?
That are considering it or that already have it? I would say Essex would be our closest neighbor.
Other questions? Okay, it's just a discussion item. No further discussion, let's move on. Privilege of the floor, public comment on anything discussed by the county clerk DMV today. Seeing none, let's move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is a consideration, it's an action item, new business. Consideration of a resolution seeking local authority for municipalities to opt out of state mandates related to climate leadership and Community Protection Act, CLCPA, and the associated universal electrification requirements, as well as bans on the use of natural gas and other fossil fuel hookup for new residential and commercial buildings, referred by Genesee, Orleans, and Yates counties. And then okay, so that's that. And so we have attached, we have resolution number 410 urging amendments to state law to allow local opt-outs from Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act and electrification mandates. In summary, I think they're referring to the legislation that's been approved that says as of January 1st, the new building code will require new buildings to be electrically heated and so forth. And certainly has been a conversation item. We also have from Orleans County Legislature, a resolution 408-925, supported Congressman Nick Langworthy's Energy Choice Act, HR 699, and the Senate version 1945, and in opposition to government mandated natural gas bans. And it has a lot of whereases and information for you. And then we also have New York State Yates County Legislature Clerk's Office. And that is supporting Senate Bill S 8481 and Assembly Bill 8996 to authorize local governments to opt out of mandates and benchmarks arising under the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act and associated universal electrification requirements pursuant to section 153 of the county law. And we have the Essex County Board of Supervisors. Oh, that's the other one? That's the other one. Thank you, Amanda. All right, let's discuss. Any thoughts on this matter at this time by committee members?
So if we vote for this, what does it actually do?
Well, I think that what they're asking us to consider, would we consider similar legislation, which is asking the state to at least defer the building requirement of going fully electric starting on January 1st. Some of the reasoning and rationales that I have heard, and perhaps you have heard the same, we're not ready. Electric prices are high. This is going to put an additional burden on new buildings and additional costs. We have natural gas. It's very efficient. And as to its nature, its role in climate change, I think there are probably other things that are more concerning. And, natural gas is just a good utility, and many people shared their thoughts with me on this matter. And that going electric right now may further burden the system, which is already burdened, the electrical system, which is burdened already, especially now if you add AI and the efforts in New York State to add AI, which are heavy, heavy energy users. I think that the other counties are saying to us, will you support us in saying this is probably not a great idea at this time? All right. Well, that's my summary of what I'm hearing. Just for the sake of the committee thoughts. Frank, I see you got an opinion.
I definitely got an opinion. It's just stupid. This is people that don't know what they're talking about, passing legislation that makes no sense.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, I mean, normally I would, because it supports home rule, normally I would support legislation. It doesn't say we're gonna do it. It says that the municipalities can elect to opt out. I know a lot of people up our way have installed wood burning stoves because the power goes out. I don't want to say regularly, but it goes out often, and it's how they heat their homes when the power goes out. But for wood burning or pellets or whatever, they would be dead in the water. And sometimes, I mean, we've had emergency situations where the power's gone out for days, and so some people, they will install a wood stove or a fossil burning situation. Some heat their homes that way, but some have it there almost more as backup than anything else. So I think especially up our way, I think having that option, I think is important. So I would support it.
Supervisor Mayday?
I'm just
And then
going
Supervisor
along,
Wild.
going along with what Ron had said. For a standby generator to power a house to produce electric heat, it's not practical right now. They don't, I know they have different units that are more efficient, but it just wouldn't happen. So the size of the generator you'd have to have would be enormous to be able to do it. So I agree with Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I remember, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, National Grid came to us saying that they wanted to raise the rates because of our electrical infrastructure not being strong enough to do what needs to be done. And I'm in support of accepting this resolution as long as it's on a delay basis. Give us more chance to make this happen. And I think the burden on the public is just too high right now, especially there's quotas for electrical vehicles. What are the quotas? Right. So I'm in favor of moving forward with something like this.
All right, so. Is that your?
I just
hand
want
up?
to make a motion in support of it. It makes sense.
All right,
I'll second that, but I just,
Okay.
for clarification, because I sometimes get confused by this issue. If a household, their cook stove, their oven, is a gas stove, and they need to replace that, does that fall under the new, or that their grandfather, then they can continue to get a new gas stove if their old one?
uh,
You know. Oh, either.
Yeah.
I'm not sure on that.
Because that would be
I
a
thought-
tremendous hardship for a family that's had a gas stove. And now,
Right?
it's dead. It had its life, and
I
now
thought
they've
it
got to
was-
replace it with an electric stove.
I thought it was beginning in 2030. You have to begin transitioning, so. uh, And I thought it was by 2035, it had to be electric, so. That meant someone would have to transition their propane generator or their gas powered generator and their gas stove. But I'll have to check that.
Thanks.
All right, so Supervisor Thomas.
Yeah, when National Grid was here, they also said that they couldn't meet the base load right now. So we're gonna add more electricity use to something that they can't meet the base load of now. That just, it just doesn't make any sense. And natural gas is much more efficient, much more practical. And we have the Marcellus Shale in the southern part of the state that they won't touch, which would help the state tremendously. And we can't touch that, so it's just nonsense is what it is.
Supervisor Connell.
Yeah, I just was to continue on the one point, I mean, most of the backup that I know is the smaller units are gasoline and the others are propane or diesel. So I'm not even sure how those new hookups would apply under the law, but for that, I mean, how else do you run your? But again, and a lot of people have install wood burning units or coal burning units or pellet burning units in their homes. Sometimes they heat their homes, but sometimes it's just there for backup because they know that in the dead of winter, they can lose their electricity and they can lose their furnace. They know that.
So we have a motion on the floor motion made by Supervisor Grachi, second by Supervisor Driscoll. I think that we can summarize it. The first resolution 410, where it talks about whereas rural towns, villages, counties in particular lack the infrastructure, energy capacity, and tax base necessary to safely and affordably implement these requirements, thereby placing disproportionate strain on municipalities already facing fiscal and optional challenges. And whereas New York State's tradition of home rule recognizes the authority of local governments to make decisions that best reflect the unique needs, capacities, and interests of the residents and businesses. And whereas local governments across the state ought to be afforded the authority to determine the pace and scope of participation in universal electrification and climate mandates, ensuring energy policy that is both practical and responsive to local conditions. And whereas, and in this case, it was the Genesee County Legislature is in full support of the New York State Senate Bill S 8481, introduced by Senator Patrick Gallivan, which would authorize local governments to opt out of mandates and benchmarks arising under the CLCPA and associated universal electrification requirement. Is that pretty much a summary of the way this committee feels? All right, having said that, having seen agreement to that, let's put it to a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Resolution passes. Discussion items, none. Whoops, did I skip something? Yeah, all right, that's the Essex County. Consideration of a resolution urging enactment of legislation amending the general municipal law in relation to exempting public employees' health insurance premiums paid by towns and counties from real property tax cap. I would add capital projects to that too. So we have Essex County Board of Supervisors. They've got the whereases, rationalizing their resolve, which is in the first resolve, asking Governor Hochul to enact legislation amending general municipal law in relation to exempting public employees' health insurance premiums paid by towns and counties, New York State County real property tax. And those of you who are town supervisors, well aware of 13, 14, 15, 16, 18% rates. A significant part, if not half of our budgets, are related to salaries and the costs associated with employees. This is one that we have very little control over. And with a tax cap of 2% and rates as high as 18%, I've heard, perhaps higher, this does seem to be an undue burden on local municipality. So the request is to exempt the rising cost of insurance premiums from our tax cap formula. Okay, thoughts?
I didn't like it when they adopted it. I just didn't think it was, I mean, basically it requires that you have, like we are having, an extra public hearing. And also if your municipality is well run and you have a low property tax levy, you can go through the tax cap with a nominal increase. And even in Warren County, you know, we have one of the lowest tax rates in the state of New York. So it's, you know, we get $1 million or more health insurance increase, or we get any kind of increase, cost of living increase. We just blow through the tax cap. Just because it doesn't, that 2% you mentioned applies differently to the size of different municipalities and whatever. You have to have a public hearing anyway on your budget anyway. So and there's a whole process you have to follow anyway, including the transmittal of the tentative budget to the board. And then the preliminary budget has to be put out there for everyone to review and comment on before it even becomes final. The budgeting process is fairly involved now, and it's very specific dates as well. My only other comment would be that, you know, that you need to submit the tax cap before adoption. So it's you get in a situation where, like, if you have a meeting coming up in November where you want the board or you want the budget adopted, you have to submit your tax cap before that. Well, if that budget gets changed in a meaningful way, the levy gets changed prior to November 20, which is your cutoff date to submit the budget, it can create all other types of issues as well. In other words, that you by law, you have to be adopted, the municipalities I'm speaking of now have to be adopted by the 20th anyway. So if you have a budget that is being modified and amended, and the tax levy is being amended, you then have to have a public meeting to adopt it prior to the 20th. So I don't like it from that point of view either. It was arbitrary. It just didn't fit well into a process that was well established. Let's put it that way.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Gratch.
Question for our county administrator. Should this be one of the other elements that NICEAG takes a look at in terms of EMS, fire, all of that increases our tax cap? Of course, the state has no tax cap, but we have tax cap. So, I mean, this is a much bigger issue.
Okay, I can, thanks. I can talk to NICEAG about that. Just some facts for you as we're talking about it, just to the county, looking at the county. Our tax cap is 2.65% this year, 1.383 million. And I'm giving this off of Frank's budget briefing, but our health insurance premium alone increase this year was 874,887. So almost 900,000 of that 1.3 million tax cap we have is taken by our health insurance premium increases. So, that's what we're talking about in this legislation is asking the legislature to exempt that, at least that 900,000. So that wouldn't count against our tax cap, because that's something we can't control as a rising cost of healthcare.
Any other thoughts from committee members? Supervisor Wild?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just a clarity, we're just asking the state to allow us to not include health insurance with our tax cap number.
Yes, that's the way I understand it.
I wish they'd just help us with the tax cap. Wish they'd help us with the tax cap
Well,
instead.
Capital projects and other things, schools are exempt, but we're not. And every year it gets harder and harder and you have to cut some other places, even though you have good intentions. But just some things we have absolutely no control over it. Supervisor Thomas.
Yeah, I think the tax cap was good politics at the time. But I think Mr. Cuomo should have put in a time limit, because I think it's what's happening is he's dug not only counties but towns. He's dug them a hole that they've gotten into, and now with the cost of labor and the way wages are going up and the health insurance and the retirement, you have no option but to break the tax cap. It's really that simple.
Well,
So they should have ended it after 3 or 4 years. They should have stopped it. And maybe they should try abiding by it. Maybe they should practice what they preach.
Other thoughts, Supervisor Wild?
You know, Mr. Chairman, I'm worried about what this is going to do to our constituents. Nobody wants more taxes, for sure. So we're kind of blocked in, and we need some more help from the state to help cover some of this stuff. Now, obviously, the state's not willing to give much to us, but it'd be good to look for other ways and lobbying the state to help us with some of these increased costs.
Supervisor Conover?
I mean, I can support this. I mean, half a loaf is better than none, right? I mean, so if there is a push to eliminate these costs from the formula, I think that's a step in the right direction. I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. There are other costs that shouldn't be calculated either, but if there's broad support to do this and there's leadership in Albany to get this done, then, like I say, part of something is better than nothing. So I could support the resolution, but I do think, though, that there's the bigger question on the whole formula.
And we have employee raises averaging 3%. I mean, that is. Yeah, property and liability insurance. They're talking about health insurance. How about your property and liability is going up significantly, not as much so, but significantly. And I could keep going on, the retirement costs and everything else are all going up. Nobody's being held by the increase in cost to 2%. If they were, if the war was fair, we could deal with it, but it's not fair. Supervisor Driscoll.
Thanks, Chairman. I always worry about kind of the bigger picture. If the state agrees to this, where they're gonna make up for the shortfall, you know, they're gonna take from that in order to kind of balance their budget, you know, take it from Peter to pay Paul. There's nothing that prevents them from doing that, and there's nothing that we can really do about that. But again, I think I join my colleagues in supporting the
Hey, Administrator Kaplan.
The only other thing, because I heard it mentioned the retirement costs. So our retirement costs increases driven by the state are 1.154 million. So if you had 1.154 million and 874,000 and you have a $1.3 million tax cap, you're over that right there alone, if everything else stays the same.
Yeah, Supervisor Conover.
I mean, take it right down to, I mean, we just dealt with the issue on energy, but some of the energy policies have pushed the cost of a truck, a tandem truck up to, with blade and every fully set up, $300,000. Just for a truck. Just for a truck. And, you know, we don't have any control over that. And frankly, the manufacturers didn't have any because they have to sell, they were required to have to produce and sell so many electric vehicles, and all that went into the calculation of the cost of, and you've heard Mr. Hajos speak to this issue on a number of occasions, just down to what it costs for a truck. The cost has just skyrocketed. So take how many frontline vehicles you have and the life expectancy that you want for your oldest truck on as part of your frontline situation, and your replacement costs alone is huge. It's huge.
We have 20 snowplows,
And to go along with what Frank was saying,
$1 million apiece.
right, and to go along with what Frank was saying, I mean, the cost of living in our area, the cost of housing, the cost of rent, as such as our employees have to be able to live as well. And that goes directly related to the, as you mentioned, the annual adjustments for living. And we're all dealing with that at the local level as well.
Other thoughts, Supervisor Wild?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one other thought. This is just giving us the option if the state approves it. This is not saying we're instituting this additional tax cap raise.
Yeah, well, I think in summary, to support what you're saying, it's urging enactment of legislation amending GML in relation to exempting public employees' health insurance premiums paid by towns and county from the real property tax credit. So it's narrowed to this. I'm hearing, you know, this committee say, well, yeah, it's that and a whole lot more. And yeah, we have respect for the tax cap, and we understand taxes are a burden on our residents. We want to provide services at the least expensive way for our taxpayers. I'm hearing all of this, but I'm not hearing a focus on just what we're supposed to be looking at today in regards to the health insurance premiums. I hear support, but I hear more and I hear less, and I'm kind of all over here as far as trying to read this committee. Yeah,
I'm
Supervisor.
going along with Supervisor Conover as far as the half a loaf idea. I agree, you have to start somewhere, and it's probably easier to get this through, one piece of it right now, and then chisel away at the others, you know,
Is that the
That's my-
consensus of the
that's my-
committee? Having deliberative thought on the matter?
Yep.
It seems to be so. Supervisor Wild?
You know, one of the things I'd like to know is what other counties are exceeding the tax cap this year?
Last
This
time
year,
news
and
was-
maybe the next year. It would be good to know who else is seeing this trouble.
Administrator Kaplan?
As this is an informal count, of course. Last year, I believe there were 8 on the county administrator's listserv that we have. It looks like there could be 10 this year.
10 out of 62.
I don't know, we don't really poll the charter counties, so I just poll the 28 non-charter counties.
Supervisor Conover?
Probably spoke more at this meeting and I haven't in my entire career, but I mean, they're having a huge national discussion about healthcare right now and the cost of rising healthcare that has shut down government in a big way. So it shouldn't surprise anyone that huge rising cost of healthcare at the national and the state level also applies to us at the local level. Of course it does. And then you want that worked into a tax cap? How does that work? How do you figure on that? How do you calculate that? You know, the truth of the matter is that it was a false premise to begin with. I mean, you got these, especially at the local level, especially at the town level and municipal level, you got these elected officials running around looking for ways to increase property taxes. I mean, your elected people wouldn't be around very long pursuing that course of action. Nothing could be further from the truth. And if you take a look at the tax rates that we have, probably the best managed municipalities in the country are at the municipal level, especially at the town level, where everything is so immediate, right? You can be seeing your elected people daily on the street. You can walk into their offices. You don't have to go to Albany or Washington. They're right there in front of you. And you can ask for explanations and so on and so forth. So I found the whole thing ridiculous, unnecessary from the very beginning, because I thought the premise itself was wrong. If anything, we're trying to figure out how to make it all work as economically as we can. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. And then what happens if you're worried politically about it? What ends up happening? Your municipality ends up in a day where we've been reading about this, where all of a sudden you have a 40 or 50% increase in taxes. I mean, that's isn't that the reality of this? That you begin to do things that you really shouldn't be doing, understating expenses, overstating revenue, and then eventually there's a day of reckoning. Eventually it comes home to roost. And so, I mean, I think right now, I think our county has one of the lowest tax rates in the state of New York. Out of 62 counties, I'll bet you anything, we're in the bottom.
Third lowest.
We're the third lowest. And our borrowing per capita, or based on assessed value, again, is one of the lowest. We've done very, very little borrowing at least since I've been here. A lot we've done with cash, you know, or saved or a bond anticipation note. So I think we should be proud of what we've accomplished. But you know, if we can at least get healthcare, you know, eliminated, I mean, I guess that's progress, I guess is what, and maybe it begins a discussion in Albany where maybe somebody in Albany says, you know, do we really even need this? You know, maybe somebody down there will have enough courage to step forward and say, you know, we don't have a tax cap. Why are we requiring towns to have tax caps?
Okay, so Supervisor Wild, then Supervisor Brown.
It's like just one more. To me, this is like a Band-Aid approach. There's a bigger issue here, which is the tax cap in general, and the state mandates that we have to absorb. What is it? The psychological exams for people who aren't competent to stand trial, where we're spending $1 million more a year than we anticipated. You know, this, the state is what's causing a lot of the issues here. Now, I know we're not gonna have much success with the state, but at the same time, I see this as just being a Band-Aid. It's just one little step. And I'd like this to go even further with what we're trying to accomplish here.
Supervisor Garachi?
No, I didn't want anything, county administrator.
I was just gonna, just some insight on that, and I'll talk to NISAC about that. We have had discussions about the 2% tax cap. The word unofficial probably that NISAC has said in several meetings is that the current comptroller of the state of New York has said that the 2% tax cap will remain as long as he's there. And so but that would be the issue probably for NISAC to take on, as opposed to maybe taking on individual pieces, is to lobby to have the 2% tax cap lifted.
All right, is the committee A? We've had a deliberative discussion, very good discussion on this topic. I get the feeling that some of you would like to continue this discussion, that there are other things other than the health insurance premiums. Or on the other side, I'm hearing it's a start in having state and asking the state to consider the costs that municipalities, including counties, are facing right now. Do we want to just table this for further thought, or do we want to make a motion specifically focusing on the health insurance premium?
Mr. Chairman, I prefer we table this and get some other ideas, maybe from NISAC, in terms of how we can approach this in general.
Is that the consensus of the committee?
Just,
If not, put a motion on the floor, but Supervisor Mayday.
I would like to put a motion on the floor. I agree with Supervisor Wild that we have to look into this further. However, I still say if we get, this is one piece out of that puzzle, that if you get this out of the way, then you're trying to convince the state on a lesser amount of topics, issues. So I say if you could chisel it down, I'd start now. So I'd make a motion.
All right, motion made by Supervisor Mayday.
I would second that with a comment, a quick comment, yeah.
Supervisor Driscoll.
I think, I agree with John, this is a marathon, but we gotta start that race at some point. And, perhaps, during this whole process, we do hear back from NISAC, and we can incorporate, those comments and recommendations into our strategy.
Okay, and just to make clear, this is a motion of support, seconded by Supervisor Driscoll, made by Supervisor Mayday, asking our legislature at New York State in amending general municipal law in relation to exempting public employees' health insurance premiums paid by towns and counties from the real property tax cap. Is that the understanding of the committee? All right, let's put it to a vote. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
One,
Nay, Supervisor Wood. Motion passes. Moving on. Another topic. The Humboldt County banned on the sale of nitrous oxides for recreational purpose. We've discussed. There is clearly support for some kind of legislation similar to Humboldt County's restricting the sale of nitrous oxide because of the potential dangers, especially to our youth. But I also understand that County Council Elman has an update on this matter for us. Am I correct?
What I can tell the committee is that under the public health law for the state of New York, it's classified as a crime for any person to use nitrous oxide for any purposes that causes intoxication, inebriation, excitement, stupefaction, or the dulling of the brain or nervous system of himself or of another person. And it is also categorized as a crime for any person to sell any canister or container of nitrous oxide unless they are granted an exemption under state law. And under no circumstances shall any canister of nitrous oxide be sold to a person under the age of 21 years. What I'm reading from is section 3380, subsection 5 of the New York State Public Health Law. And what that section provides is classification as a misdemeanor for any person who violates that section. It's a Class A misdemeanor punishable by up to 1 year in local jail, as well as all other penalties that are available for a Class A misdemeanor. This has been discussed with law enforcement and the district attorney's office. I do not want to speak on behalf of either of those departments in going forward. However, the state statute also provides exceptions and exemptions for when use or sale of nitrous oxide would not be classified as a misdemeanor. So there is already a provision under state law that impacts the use and the sale of nitrous oxide. Practically speaking, I can convey to the committee that there were inquiries made to determine the ability of a laboratory testing facility to test for nitrous oxide. Because in order to establish a crime, you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt what the substance is. So for example, when there's an illegal sale of drugs charged for cocaine or heroin, that drug has to go under a laboratory analysis, and that testing has to show that the substance is in fact the substance that's prohibited under state law. And it's my understanding that there were no labs identified that had the ability to test nitrous oxide. So there is a state law in place that makes the sale of nitrous oxide illegal for certain circumstances, excludes certain circumstances. And that would be the update for today, that there is a state law that prohibits the conduct that's being looked at. And I believe it occupies the field, meaning the state law covers the conduct that a county in New York may look to prohibit as a local law.
Any thoughts? Any thoughts? Yes, sir.
Just a question to Larry. Do those penalties and laws apply to individuals of all ages? Because I believe that many of the testimonials that we've heard over the last 2 or 3 months were perhaps for individuals under the age of 21. And I think we all know that, you know, there's a lot of teenagers engaging in that activity. Is the jail and the you know the penalty the same for a 17-year-old as it is for a someone over 21?
What the statute says is that any person who violates that subdivision, subdivision 5, shall be guilty of a Class A misdemeanor. And subdivision 5 applies to any person who uses nitrous oxide for the purposes of intoxication, or a person who sells a canister or container containing nitrous oxide unless there's a grant, unless granted an exemption pursuant to the state law.
Okay.
And under no circumstance can the canister be sold to any person under the age of 21 years. That is probably the brightest line
Right.
in the state statute, because the exemptions don't apply to any sale of someone who's under 21 years of age.
So are you saying that the Humboldt County legislation regarding the ban on the sale is superfluous?
What I'm saying is Humboldt County is in the state of California. I don't know California law, but they certainly don't apply here in New York. So I'm not aware of any other county in the state of New York that has enacted a local law prohibiting what state law already prohibits, because we don't do that.
So in summary,
State law is already in place on this
it's
issue.
already in place. Maybe we should work harder at enforcing section 3380 subdivision 5 of the New York State Public Health Law.
I'm the county attorney.
Yeah.
I don't do enforcement and I don't do prosecution.
Okay. Other thoughts by a committee on this matter? Yes, Supervisor Mayday?
We should maybe have a conversation with the district attorney and the sheriff and get their input on it and what their thoughts are and how we can move forward.
That conversation occurred the day after this issue
Okay.
first came up to this committee. And I believe it's being looked at as possible roads forward. One of the issues is the inability to test for the substance in a manner that would, as I understand it, would permit prosecution, because there's no laboratory that will test for nitrous oxide.
Supervisor?
Yeah, can I suggest that we ask the district attorney and the sheriff just to provide us an update on their thoughts, findings at the next public safety committee meeting,
And our committee or
the next public criminal justice.
Criminal justice.
public
Criminal
safety.
Justice Committee? I'm hearing this committee would like to hear the same. Supervisor?
Yeah, we're Glens Falls Police. Glens Falls Police Department also participate in that conversation.
The one at the
Sheriff.
county the day after, no.
Yeah, okay. I mean, if Sheriff LaFar could reach out to Chief, I think I would like to have their input into it also. If we could do that.
All right, Administrator Taplin?
We can do that.
Okay, we can do,
I
yeah,
mean, if you'd rather them come here instead of the criminal justice committee, that's fine. Up to you.
well, we've been kind of leading the way on this. I mean, I can see the appropriate nature of what you're suggesting, but all right, so what I'm hearing is we would like to have some summary in person or in writing of the difficulties of imposing the law that already exists, because maybe we could address those issues. The law already exists, but we're seeing young people die as a result of misuse. We don't want that. What can we do better? So yeah, I think,
We also need the factual data.
yeah,
I think it's too broad to say young people are dying. I'm not sure.
yeah. Well, you, and
But
I think you're,
between public health and those agencies, we can get that
so
information.
at our next meeting, or before our next meeting, we get a written summary and or perhaps the DA and the sheriff would like to talk to this committee about this topic in person. Either or, right? That's what I'm hearing from the committee, either something in writing or something in person at our next Legislative Rules and Governmental Operations Committee meeting. Okay, that seems to be a yes. Okay, thank you. All right, Amanda. All right, well, let's move on. Next referral, pending item. County treasurer to BLT tribal compact monies not being received in quite some time from the Native American tribal casinos. Discussion to continue at our next meeting. Committee also requested the county administrator contact state representatives for assistance.
You want, I can give an update.
Yeah, would you please?
And the chairman can probably elaborate on this as well. From NISAC, just to shorten it, apparently there was a land swap deal with the Oneida Nation that took some time to occur. And during that time, they were sending the proceeds from the casino to the state of New York. They were put into escrow and not paid to the counties. However, we have received our first payment, and according to NISAC, we should receive the rest of what we were due, which is about $400,000, I believe. And they expect those payments to continue from this point on. What we're getting in arrears is unclear at this time. We're hoping the state of New York does not keep that money. It was supposedly in escrow. So that is what I think that we will ask our legislators to help us with, to make sure that New York pays us the money that we're due. And I look to the chairman for additional. He had a conversation.
Oh, yeah. So I don't break the rules here.
We were at Clinton County for inter-county, and the Clinton County administrator asked the same question. All of a sudden this check appeared and then they get more money up there because they're closer to the casino. So Patrick Cummings from NISAC enlightened us on the information that he wasn't 100% clear that I guess the nations had sent the money, continued to send the money to the state and it was put in an escrow account. Within the last 2 months, they've come to agreement. They're waiting for one of the federal agencies to sign off. As soon as the federal agency signed off, then the money was going to be released. Well, we were all thrilled to get 100,000, and I think that's why they started paying. It's still up in the air where we're going to get our arrears. I think this started in 2020 or 2019.
2020.
2020. So there could be 4 years of money owed to, it's not just Warren County, it's the other counties surrounding it. So that seemed to be pretty positive if it really happens. If that's the way it was done, the nations sent the money to state put it into an accountant is supposedly holding it. So if that happens, it'd be
I'll be burned interest.
good for us.
Yeah, we're gonna get the interest too.
I don't know. You know how that works, Bernie.
It's
But anyway, there was a positive outcome that had us all curious when we got that one check.
Okay, thank you, Chairman
Okay.
Kearney. Other thoughts on this matter from committee at this time? Yes.
Yeah, I still like the idea of a casino on the boat on Lake George. We can tax that.
Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, on something new when you have a moment.
Okay, well, how about this topic? Is anybody else? Okay, well, new business.
So, Mr. Chairman, thank you. We had a discussion earlier about the nitrous oxide issue. I received a couple of emails about registered sex offenders and short-term rentals. And I'm wondering if we could do a public service to allow the sheriff, the county attorney I spoke to about it, and maybe the DA, public defenders, to come in and talk about what we can do and what we can't do based on state law. So I'm just thinking it was more complicated than a brief conversation I had with the county attorney. And I think it would be good for us to just have another update on what we can and cannot do in terms of the registered sex offenders.
All right, from what I understand the issue to be, that as far as short-term rentals and sex offenders, they don't have to register when they use a short-term rental. So neighbors don't know who is
Yeah.
next to them. And you would like to have, more of a conversation on this matter, but is there somebody that we could bring in that might, elaborate?
Well, like I mentioned, I spoke to the county attorney. There's not a lot of options for us
Yeah,
because of the state law, but I think it would be wise that we can really kind of spell out what we can and cannot do in terms of trying to find a way to put our residents at ease that are living next door to short-term rentals.
Council, is that
For future
something you
discussion.
wish to do for us before the next, legislative rules and governmental operations committee meeting?
The primary option that's available to the county is passing a resolution encouraging the legislature to change state law under the corrections law regarding the registration and notification of sex offenders. That would be the number one option for this county and other counties to pursue right now.
So Supervisor Wild, it seems that it would be appropriate if we could get a draft piece of legislation such as council is suggesting for this committee to look over, add to, subtract, and consider at our next meeting.
If I might just provide an option, maybe a county administrator could check with NISAC for us to see if anything like that has been going on in the recent times so that maybe we can jump on the bandwagon, or maybe we can start something our own to try to
I
make that
can
happen.
also ask the other county administrators if anyone's has done anything.
So Amanda, can we put this as an agenda item at our next governmental operation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else from the committee? All right, to the public. Privilege of the floor. Yes, ma'am, please go up to the podium and or
Yeah,
you can
okay.
sit there, yeah.
Should I sit, stand? Sorry, it's my first time. My name is Ashley Spalding. I'm the Director of Community Outreach for Baywood Center in Queensbury. And I'm here to discuss a little bit about what we're seeing on an outpatient setting when it comes to nitrous oxide. I've had multiple staff members report that even just being in a convenience store, they're getting a sandwich, they see people purchasing the nitrous oxide. The cashier takes a red mouthpiece out from underneath their desk, tosses in a brown paper bag, hands it to the individual who's buying the nitrous oxide, and sends them on their way. The cashiers in these convenience stores and these gas stations know very well that they are selling this nitrous oxide directly for use for the individual to get intoxicated. We've seen multiple deaths, adult deaths, not just adolescent deaths, as a result of nitrous oxide use. We've had individuals who have admitted to going bankrupt, spending over $200-300 a day on nitrous oxide use in our county. And we are seeing a pretty significant increase, not just in adolescent use, but in adult use, causing to the point of psychosis. I don't think that we, as a county, are fully aware of the detrimental effects this is having. I would be interested to see in terms of car accidents, what that's causing. But since no lab, and we're even seeing it on an outpatient setting, that labs are not able to test for the substance. Because it is an inhalant, it doesn't get metabolized the same way. So when we're testing our adolescents or if we're testing our adults, it's not something that can be really picked up and addressed unless the individual is willing to tell us and admit that they're using. I've worked in schools and I've had many adolescents talk about how easy it is to obtain this substance. I will also just comment that this is not the only substance that is being sold in convenience stores and gas stations that are causing significant harm to our population. There are substances, it's a synthetic form of psilocybin that's being sold in chocolate bars that's causing hallucinations to the point where I have 15-year-olds who are eating dirt and telling me it's steak. We have, in addition to that, stimulants that are being marketed as sexual enhancement drugs that are causing heart problems because of the level to which they're being taken. So I'd just like to share with this community that it's not just nitrous oxide that's causing such detrimental effects to our population. Both young adults who are not supposed to be acquiring these substances, but those over the age of 21, that it's really becoming such an issue, but it's not an issue that we can truly address unless the individual is willing to bring it to us. This is a substance I would compare to gambling, where you don't see the outward effects of it. You can't test for it in terms of a drug test, but the detrimental effects on the financial, on the family unit, and on their mental health is becoming more and more significant. We have individuals ending up in the BHU because they can't tell reality from the hallucinations. And although we don't know which individuals may be affected to the point of hallucinations and delusions, we are seeing that more and more often mental health is really declining, and it does tend to be in conjunction with these other substances that they're just getting from the gas station. More conversation that I'm having is not really about opioid use, it's about gas station drugs. I can't tell you how many conversations I'm having with adolescents and adults to tell them, please, if you're not going to buy sushi from a gas station, please don't buy your drugs from a gas station. So I really would encourage this committee, in addition to bringing in state officials and asking what we could do to really enforce these laws, bring in providers who are working directly with the public that see the day-to-day consequences that this is having on families, individuals, and the community. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could we have a list of some of those products that you're mentioning?
Oh, yes, Create's another one that's killing people.
So
Yeah.
could you give us a list? I was at a gas station not long ago and I asked about nitrous oxide and they had no idea whether they were selling it or not, this one clerk. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna ask and I'll ask questions.
Yes, usually it's in a big canister and it's directly behind the clerk.
Supervisor Tom.
So this gets back to Warren County banning the sale of this
Yeah.
substance. Because, I mean, that's the problem with a lot of laws. You got a lot of laws, but there's no enforcement. And that's where the problem with laws come. So if this is going on, then we should just ban it completely. And then no sales whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I like that.
And it sounds like there may be more than one substance that the committee would want to look
Right.
at.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll get that list. And that was a real wow.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll get your information at the end.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else from the public like to speak to the committee? Any topic? All right, seeing none.
I just have
Yes,
actually a
ma'am.
question, if I could, Kathleen Boyle.
You have to be on the record, so either speak to this mic on the table or speak to that mic on.
Kathleen Boyle, to the county attorney who reviewed the New York state law that I'd heard a little bit about. I understand the first part, it criminalizes the user. The second part to that is the sale of nitrous. Is it only prohibited if the agency that's selling it knows that it's being inhaled?
I'm not sure it's that clear, but I can certainly give you a copy of the state law. after
Okay, that would be
We'll get
great.
it to you.
Because that's what I understood it to be, that, back to what this young woman just said about putting that mouthpiece in a bag. Because these nitrous canisters in the smoke shops and in gas stations say on them, do not inhale. So they're being inhaled.
And just to be clear, it's not my office that enforces the laws as the county attorney, other than juvenile
You
delinquency.
interpret for, yeah.
And I don't interpret for the district attorney necessarily.
No problem. Thanks.
All right, so thank you, Mrs. Boyle. So we will have a talk on the facts with the written or otherwise on this topic before our next meeting. We'll bring it up for discussion again. Okay, anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Supervisor Wild, second by Supervisor Conover. All those in favor, please signify by